In the quiet corners of Japan's storied past, hidden behind temple walls and mist-veiled mountains, lies a mysterious routine that has challenged warriors, monks, and seekers of greatness for centuries. This is not merely a practice, it is a test of the human spirit, known only to the most disciplined. This Japanese routine demands absolute dedication, physical endurance, and unwavering mental strength. Legends say that those who attempt it must walk a path of suffering, discipline, and silent transformation. And the most astonishing part, only 1% of those who begin this journey ever reach the end. Many have tried, few have endured. But those who complete it are forever changed, earning a place in history as symbols of perseverance and spiritual mastery. In the heart of ancient Japan, long before neon skylines and bullet trains reshaped the nation's image, life moved to the rhythm of rituals, traditions, and codes of honor. Among the countless customs that defined this land, one routine stood apart. A path that demanded far more than mere physical endurance. Its origins were woven into the spiritual and martial fabric of Japan, emerging from an era where strength, discipline, and inner balance determined not just a person's status but their very worth. This legendary routine was not taught in schools or shared in manuals. It was preserved by monks, warriors, and ascetics who believed that true mastery of life could only be achieved through suffering and perseverance. It grew in the shadow of mountains where Buddhist temples stood like silent guardians of ancient wisdom, and where torches flickered against the night sky as practitioners undertook grueling sessions meant to strip away every weakness of the soul. To understand why this routine still commands reverence, one must first understand the Japan that created it. The country, fragmented by conflicts and political rivalries, demanded resilience. Samurai warriors trained relentlessly, for the sword was not merely a weapon, it was the extension of a disciplined mind. Every swing required full presence, every stance a meditation. Samurai culture embraced a belief: if one could conquer the self, no enemy could ever prevail. This philosophy laid the foundation for practices that pushed limits, tested resolve, and forged identities. Parallel to the way of the warrior stood the path of the monk. In secluded monasteries, men dedicated their lives to spiritual enlightenment. They endured hunger, silence, and long pilgrimages. For them, discipline was not a display of power but a bridge to transcendence. Their daily routines were crafted with meticulous precision. Hours of chanting, meditation, fasting, and walking through treacherous mountain paths. Over time, these practices evolved and merged with martial traditions, creating a system where body and soul were tested as one. The routine that emerged became a silent trial. There were no audiences, no medals, no ceremonies. The reward lay not in recognition but in transformation. Those who began the journey were told one truth: this routine was not designed so everyone could finish. It existed so only the strongest, mentally, physically, and spiritually, could endure. That was its purpose. Only those who embraced pain as a teacher could reach the end. Stories from centuries past tell of young aspirants who sought this path to prove themselves worthy. They would leave their families at dawn, carrying nothing but determination. Upon arriving at temples, they found no warm welcome, only stern instructors whose eyes seemed capable of seeing weakness before a word was spoken. Rules were rigid. A single mistake meant starting over, or abandoning the attempt altogether. Many believed the first 3 days were the harshest, as the body resisted commands it had never known. But the elders insisted the real battle began only after the body surrendered, and the mind was left exposed. There were accounts of samurai who attempted the routine to cleanse their spirits before battle. They walked through forests in silence, carried heavy loads, and practiced rituals that required absolute concentration. The exhaustion was intentional. A fatigued mind revealed the truth of one's character. Could a person still stand tall when strength faded? Could they remain calm when breath trembled and muscles screamed? These questions defined the essence of the journey. What made this routine so remarkable was not merely its physical demands but its philosophical roots. In ancient Japanese belief, life was not a pursuit of comfort but a quest for purpose. Pain was not an enemy but a sculptor shaping destiny. The monks said the weakest part of a person was not the body but the mind that refused to continue. This understanding forged a culture where endurance became synonymous with honor. Generations passed, yet the routine endured. It whispered through temple halls, traveled across mountain trails, and etched itself into the psyche of those who sought something greater than ordinary existence. Even as modernization swept across Japan, the legacy remained untouched. People from distant lands heard fragments of the story, a tradition so demanding that only 1 out of every 100 who attempted it ever reached the final stage. That statistic did not discourage seekers, rather it drew them. For to be part of the 1% was not merely an achievement, it was a rebirth. Today, the routine stands as a living testament to Japan's ancient belief greatness is not found in ease, but in hardship willingly embraced. The tradition continues not because it is impossible, but because it reveals who we truly are when excuses fall away and the soul stands naked before its own limits. And in that moment, those who complete the path join a lineage that stretches back centuries. A lineage carved in discipline, fortified by silence, and born from the heartbeat of ancient Japan itself. In ancient Japan, where mountains touched the clouds and rivers reflected the spirits of ancestors, strength was never measured by muscle alone. To the ordinary observer, warriors and monks seemed to embody power through their physical feats, endless training, rigid postures, and swift strikes. Yet the elders knew a truth few understood. True strength resided not in the body, but in the unseen battlefield of the mind. It was here, in the silent chambers of thought and emotion, that destinies were shaped and legends were forged. From childhood, Japanese warriors were taught that the sword was only as sharp as the mind that guided it. Tales whispered around castle fires spoke of duels where the victor won not through greater force, but through unbreakable calmness and presence. The samurai believed that fear, doubt, and hesitation were deadlier than any enemy. If the mind faltered, the body followed. This belief became the foundation of their grueling routines, rituals, and meditations, designed not to strengthen muscle, but to conquer the self. The ancient martial philosophy known as Bushido, the way of the warrior, did not glorify brute strength. Instead, it praised serenity under pressure, loyalty beyond reason, and a will that refused to break. Warrior scrolls told stories of men who, cornered and outnumbered, emerged victorious because their minds remained focused while others panicked. In this world, the sword might injure flesh, but a disciplined mind could slice through fate. The monks who lived alongside these warriors understood this truth even more deeply. In temples secluded among whispering bamboo forests, they trained not for war but for enlightenment. Yet their challenges were no less daunting. They renounced comfort, embraced silence, and sat for hours in meditation, battling thoughts that clawed at the edges of consciousness. Hunger gnawed at their stomachs, cold winds stung their skin, but the real adversary lived within their minds: impatience, fear, and the endless noise of desire. It was here that the Japanese routine took shape, not from the desire to create physical champions, but to forge mental warriors. Those who attempted the routine quickly discovered that exhaustion came not from lifting burdens or climbing paths, but from wrestling with their inner shadows. Muscles could adapt, but the mind resisted change. When fatigue threatened to collapse the body, the mind whispered reasons to quit. When a task seemed impossible, doubt crept in like a silent assassin. Only those who silenced these voices survived the journey. Ancient instructors rarely raised their voices or showed anger. They did not need to. Their silence was more powerful than any command. Students soon realized that every grueling task was designed to reveal their inner truth. If someone cursed the difficulty, it meant their spirit was weak. If someone begged for rest, it meant their resolve was fragile. The elders watched not how candidates moved, but how they thought under pressure. Physical strength could be admired, but mental endurance was revered. Legends from the Edo and Heian eras recall warriors who could meditate for hours before battle, steadying their minds until their heartbeat matched the earth itself. They believed that once the mind became immovable, the world could not shake them. One tale speaks of a swordsman who won a duel without striking a blow. His opponent fled, overwhelmed by the unflinching stillness in the swordsman's gaze. Such stories echoed across generations, proving that power did not roar, it whispered. The Japanese routine became a crucible for this philosophy. Candidates were pushed beyond exhaustion, not because the elders wished to see them suffer, but because suffering stripped away illusions. A man might believe he is strong until thirst dries his throat and pain weighs on his bones. A woman may think she is brave until the silence reveals fears she never knew existed. Through these trials, the mind was laid bare, and only those who embraced the discomfort could step forward. In these sacred traditions, failure was not shameful. Quitting was. To quit meant surrendering not to the world, but to one's own weaknesses. That was the ultimate defeat. The Japanese believed that the world outside could kill the body, but only the mind could kill the spirit. And so, every step of the routine, every sleepless night, every icy morning, every breath drawn in agony, served one purpose: to build a mind that refused to bow. Even today, in a world of machines and convenience, this ancient truth endures. Many admire physical strength, yet few understand the invisible war fought within. The 1% who complete the routine are not the strongest bodies. They are the conquerors of doubt, fear, and inner turmoil. They learn that once the mind kneels, the body collapses. But if the mind stands unshaken, the body becomes unstoppable. This belief, carved into the soul of Japan's history, remains a reminder that the greatest victories are never won against others, but against the parts of ourselves that whisper, "You cannot go on." Those who silence that voice earn not just completion of a routine, but mastery over life itself. Daily life in ancient Japan moved with the precision of a blade drawn from its scabbard, silent, deliberate, and intentional. Yet among the many customs and routines that shaped the people of this land, there existed a practice so demanding that even the most disciplined found themselves trembling under its weight. This routine was no ordinary schedule. It was a masterwork of structure, crafted to dismantle human complacency. Those who embarked upon it entered a world where every breath, every gesture, every moment was dictated by unyielding discipline. There was no room for leisure here, no tolerance for error. Each day began long before sunrise, when the sky still shimmered with the remnants of night. Practitioners awakened to darkness, not because the world demanded it, but because discipline commanded it. Sleep was not a comfort, it was a ration, granted briefly and taken away swiftly. Fatigue was a constant companion, but complaining was forbidden. In this world, acceptance was the only refuge. The first task of the morning was purification. Water drawn from icy mountain streams was poured over trembling bodies, symbolizing the cleansing of doubt and weakness. For ordinary people, such temperatures would provoke screams or retreat. But here, fear had no voice. The water was more than cold. It was a declaration. Those who flinched were reminded that nature was indifferent to comfort, and so too must be the human spirit. Only by embracing what others avoided could one ascend beyond ordinary existence. What followed was a sequence of rituals that tested the body's limits. Miles of walking, sometimes barefoot across rugged terrain, formed the backbone of the routine. Not a casual stroll, but a march where posture, pace, and silence were mandatory. A single misstep, a deviation in rhythm, was considered a fracture in one's resolve. The elders observed with eyes sharper than any swordsmiths. They saw weakness not in posture but in intention. If one slowed, it was not the legs that faltered, it was the will. Meals were equally strict. Food was simple, rice, vegetables, and sometimes nothing at all. Eating was not pleasure, it was fuel. The practitioners learned that hunger sharpened awareness and that satisfaction dulled ambition. The Japanese believed that the stomach, when full, made the mind lazy, and so the routine starved the body just enough to awaken the senses. One could taste the air, hear the heartbeat, and feel life with unbearable clarity. After meals came labor. The tasks varied: hauling wood, sweeping temple grounds, climbing steep paths with weights strapped across their backs. Each task appeared menial, yet each carried a hidden purpose. To clean the temple floor was not about removing dust, it was about removing ego. To carry logs across a mountain trail was not for strength, it was to teach that effort must be constant, even when the goal is unseen. The body strained, but the spirit was the true student. But it was meditation that broke many. Hours of stillness, legs folded, eyes half closed, back straight as a spear. Silence, complete, consuming, merciless, descended like a storm. There were no distractions, no excuses. The body rebelled, the mind screamed, memories surfaced like demons clawing at consciousness. Here, discipline revealed its cruelest truth. The loudest battles are fought in the quietest places. Many begged to continue physical labor rather than endure another moment of stillness. Muscles could be trained, but the mind exposed itself without mercy. As dusk arrived, when the world softened into amber hues, the routine intensified rather than relaxed. The night was given to reflection and repetition. Scrolls of ancient teachings were studied, not for knowledge, but for transformation. Words carved by ancestors reminded practitioners that they were not alone. Countless others had walked this path and left warnings for those who followed. The young learned that discipline was not punishment, it was inheritance. Sleep, when granted, was never indulgent. Mats were thin, rooms cold, and dreams brief. Each awakening felt like resurrection, not because rest was deep, but because every day demanded death of yesterday's limitations. Here, time was not a measure of progress, effort was. There was no applause, no external reward. The routine offered nothing but the opportunity to discover one's truth, and that was more terrifying than any physical trial. Those who endured day after day learned something that outsiders could never understand. Discipline is not a prison. It is a blade that cuts away weakness. It is a teacher that speaks without words. It is the fire that purifies the soul. And yet, this fire spared no one. The majority left before their bodies broke, because their minds broke first. The Japanese routine was crafted with surgical precision. Every detail, every silence, every hardship was deliberate. It was an unspoken agreement between the tradition and the individual: give everything or give nothing. And it is here that the truth behind the 1% emerges. Only a rare few accept the cost. Only a few understand that greatness is not earned by desire, it is earned by discipline. Those who completed the routine did not celebrate. They simply bowed, as if acknowledging the mountains, the cold, the silence, and the struggle that shaped them. They walked away not with titles or wealth, but with a gift no one could take: mastery over time, action, and self. For them, discipline was no longer a routine, it was a way of being. Across the long corridors of Japanese history, countless individuals stepped forward with hopes burning fiercely in their hearts, believing they possessed the strength to conquer the routine that had tested generations. They arrived strong, determined, and confident, yet most left humbled, defeated, and forever changed. The numbers tell a story sharper than any blade: only 1 in 100 reached the end. To outsiders, this might seem exaggerated or mythical, yet those who witnessed the attempts knew the brutal truth. The failure rate was not the result of impossible tasks, it was the inevitable outcome of confronting the self. In ancient Japan, where honor was revered more than life itself, failure carried a sting deeper than wounds. Samurai warriors who faced multiple enemies on the battlefield sometimes faltered not because their swords broke, but because their spirits cracked. The same was true within the confines of this sacred routine. Here no enemy stood before the participants, no revel, no threat except the echo of their own minds. And yet, countless abandoned the path long before their bodies grew weary. The true battlefield revealed itself long before exhaustion set in. The elders who guarded this tradition understood human nature better than any philosopher. They knew that most people live their lives believing they are strong because they have never truly been tested. The routine did not break people, it revealed them. Day after day, layer after layer, illusions peeled away like old lacquer from ancient wood. Those who believed themselves unshakable discovered cracks. Those who claimed to be fearless met fears they never knew existed. The vast majority left because they encountered something far more terrifying than physical pain: the truth of who they really were. The early days of the routine were deceptively simple. There was no dramatic spectacle, no immediate suffering. It began quietly, like a calm sea masking dangerous currents. But soon participants noticed the pressure tightening around them, not physically, but psychologically. Rules left no breathing space, rituals continued without pause, and the awareness of time marched forward mercilessly. Some thought they could push through by willpower alone, yet as each dawn approached, sleep-deprived minds scrambled for excuses. One whisper, "Not today," was enough to end a legacy. It was said that the first ones to quit were often the strongest in body. The warriors who arrived boasting of their endurance. Their muscles could carry them far, but their minds faltered at the first sign of monotony or discomfort. Strength built in the battlefield was useless here, for this was a war without enemies, a journey without applause. The warriors soon realized that they could fight 100 men, but they could not defeat the voice inside that whispered, "Why continue?" Those who lasted longer entered deeper trials. Hunger gnawed at their discipline, fatigue clouded their senses, and silence became unbearable. Each day was a mirror that showed them their weaknesses without mercy. Some participants fled in the night, ashamed to face another sunrise. Others collapsed not from physical exhaustion, but from the unbearable weight of repetition. The elders watched these departures without judgment. They believed that not everyone was destined for greatness, and that failure was not dishonor but truth. Legends tell of men who wept silently as they packed their belongings, realizing the path was not theirs to walk. Women who dreamed of proving themselves but faced inner storms so fierce they could no longer move forward. Proud samurai who bowed in shame because they could conquer enemies yet could not conquer their thoughts. Every departure had a story, but every story carried the same burden: the mind's surrender. The failure rate became a symbol in Japanese culture, a silent reminder that desire alone means nothing. Villagers spoke of the few who completed the routine in hushed tones, comparing them to mythic heroes. Their names became fragments of folklore, not because they achieved fame, but because they endured something beyond human measure. Parents warned children that greatness was not born from dreams, it was sculpted by persistence. Yet even failure served a purpose here. The routine taught those who quit something no classroom could, that life demands more than ambition, it demands resolve. Many who left carried the lesson throughout their lives. Some returned years later, hardened by the world, ready to try again. Others accepted their limitations with newfound humility, knowing that strength is not the absence of weakness, but the courage to confront it. In the end, the Japanese did not celebrate the 99% who failed, nor did they mock them. They simply acknowledged a universal truth: the path to mastery is not crowded because few dare to stay on it. The routine remained a gate through which only the rarest souls could pass, not because it blocked the weak, but because it demanded everything: the mind, the will, the identity itself. Thus, the high failure rate became more than a statistic. It was a legend etched into the spirit of Japan, a reminder that the world is full of starters yet almost devoid of finishers. The 1% who completed the journey did not just succeed, they transcended. And in doing so, they proved what the elders always knew: the human mind is the greatest obstacle, and only those who conquer it are worthy of history's whisper. In the annals of Japanese tradition, the completion of this grueling routine was never marked by festivals, feasts, or public reward. There were no banners raised to celebrate the victors, no drums beating in triumph, no proclamations issued in their honor. For those who reached the end, the world remained unchanged, but they did not. Their reward was invisible to the eye, yet immeasurable in worth, a treasure not minted in gold or forged in steel, but born deep within the soul. It was a transformation so profound that those who achieved it became unrecognizable, even to themselves. In ancient Japan, true value was never found in possessions. Samurai armor rusted, castles fell, wealth changed hands like drifting leaves. What endured was the character of a person, the quiet strength cultivated through perseverance. This belief shaped the essence of the routine's ultimate reward. It was not about prestige, it was about transcendence. Those who completed it stepped beyond the ordinary boundaries of human limitation and tasted a purity of purpose that few ever experience. When the final test was done, there was no applause. The elders did not bow. The mountains did not echo with shouts of victory. Instead, a deep silence settled, as though nature itself paused to bear witness. The participant, once trembling with exhaustion and doubt, now stood with an unshakable stillness. It was not the stillness of inactivity, but the stillness of mastery, like a lake so calm it reflected the heavens without distortion. The routine did not give them peace, it revealed the peace that had always been hidden beneath layers of fear, hesitation, and ego. What they gained could not be purchased or stolen. It was something no outsider could comprehend until they too had walked the path. The reward was clarity, a vision free from the fog of insecurity. Those who completed the routine carried themselves differently. They no longer sought validation, nor did they chase fleeting desires. Their steps became deliberate, their words fewer but heavier, like a sword perfectly balanced. Their presence alone quieted rooms, for people sensed something ancient and immovable within them. Stories emerged of individuals who, upon completing the routine, returned to their villages as living embodiments of calm. When disputes arose, a single glance from them dissolved anger. When storms threatened to break spirits, they reminded others, without speaking, that storms pass. They possessed no authority from kings or lords, yet held influence greater than any title could bestow. Their strength was not loud, it resonated like a distant drum felt in the bones rather than heard by the ears. Others took their transformation to the battlefield. Samurai who once trembled before combat now entered war as if walking through morning mist. The fear that once burdened their hearts had evaporated. They understood that death was not an enemy, merely another step on the path. This acceptance made them formidable, not because they fought harder, but because they no longer fought themselves. Their opponents sensed this and faltered, for how could one defeat someone who had already conquered every part of their own spirit? Some chose solitude instead of glory. They returned to the mountains where their journey began, seeking not praise but deeper understanding. They became monks, teachers, or silent ascetics who lived without desire. To them, life no longer required proving anything. The world was no longer a battlefield, it was a canvas. Each moment was a stroke of meaning, each breath a reminder of existence. Their eyes shone with something indescribable, a quiet knowing that no book, no lecture, no sermon could replicate. The Japanese held immense respect for such individuals, not because they were strong, but because they were free. Freedom was the true treasure awaiting those who completed the routine, not freedom from society, but freedom from the mind's chains. They had broken the bonds of doubt, fear, and hesitation. They had learned that suffering was not punishment, but preparation. The world no longer dictated their path, they shaped it with intention and clarity. This inner wealth, this mastery over self, was the kind of reward emperors could not command and enemies could not seize. It was eternal. While bronze statues might tarnish and scrolls might burn, the transformation within these few lived on through generations. Their legacy was not written in ink, but etched into the minds of those who heard their stories. Every child who dreamed of bravery, every warrior who sought purpose, every monk who craved enlightenment, each was drawn to the legend of the 1%. For what greater aspiration exists than to become one's own master? Thus, the completion of the Japanese routine was never meant to create heroes for others to admire. It was designed to forge individuals who no longer needed admiration. The reward was not about standing above the world. It was about standing unshaken within it. Those who completed the routine stepped into life with a serenity that could not be disturbed, a confidence that could not be stolen, and a wisdom that could not be taught. They were not richer, but they were fulfilled. They were not famous, but they were immortal, in spirit, in memory, in the whispers of history that still speak of them today. And so, while only 1% reached the end, that 1% carried something far greater than victory. They carried proof that beyond struggle lies transformation, and beyond transformation lies the rarest reward of all.